2008 and the UAA Institute of Chemical Technology Distinguished Alumnus Award 2017. He's a large carnivore biologist with immense knowledge on predator-prey relationships and has contributed to several carnivore conservation projects across India. Sir is a wildlife photographer of repute and has photographed some of the remotest wildlife reserves in India. Third, two books on Indian wildlife. He is also a part of the organizing committee of India Climate Collaborative (ICC), the governing council of Bombay Natural History Society (BNHS), and the advisory board of BNP Paribas India Foundation. It is a privilege to have you with us, sir. I now request you to kindly take this session forward.
Thank you, Vishal. Thank you, Shilpa. And I'm glad to see so many people on a Sunday morning. That means that there is interest in wildlife, on tigers, and in areas related to conservation. So this session, Shilpa, if I understand correctly, is about 40-45 minutes, right? Followed by question answer.
Yes, sir. Right.
So I would suggest that somebody rings a bell when it is 40 minutes.
Okay, Tanay, you will do that.
Yeah, and don't hesitate, because I can go on and on talking about the subject of that I'm passionate about. So as the the topic is, how is tiger conservation important from conservation for the conservation of biodiversity and for fighting climate change? So basically, what is the rationale for tiger conservation? Why are governments, not only in India, but across the tiger range countries, and by tiger range countries, I mean 13 countries, all of them are in Asia, who hold tiger populations, or who had tiger populations back, say, about 100 years ago. There are several countries of these 13 who have lost all tigers. So why is tiger such an important animal? And is tiger conservation only about tigers, or is it about everything wild and beautiful? Is what I'm going to cover. I think most of you are aware, I'm sure you know, that tigers are large ranging animals, that they live in large areas. A single tiger can occupy about 50 square kilometers in terms of territory, and in its lifetime it could have a range of about 200 to 300 square kilometers. When I say range, it means in its lifetime what is the area that it covers. However, it is found in an area of about 50 square kilometers if it is a male tiger 80% of the time. So there is no fixed area of a tiger as such. There is a preferred area, and that preferred area is governed by three important factors. One is how undisturbed that area is. Two, is there enough food? And third, presence of water. And so tiger in Indian mythology is called the striped water god. In Hindi, Pattedar Pani Ka Devta, because if you don't have water, you won't have tigers. Lot of cats, in fact, almost all cats, barring three, that is the fishing cat, the jaguar, and the tiger, don't like water too much. You will rarely see a lion pass through water. You will never see a leopard or a lion or a jungle cat or a lynx sitting in water. But you will see jaguars hunting in water, you will see tigers sitting in water. So tigers are closely related to water, and therefore they are a symbol for healthy ecosystems. If you don't have good quality forest, you will not have good quality water. If you don't have good quality water, you will not have tigers there. And that's why they are a symbol for conservation. India is a magical land. It has the towering Himalayas to the north. They are the ones who are responsible for fixed monsoon months in India, because there is fixed monsoon, fixed season. We have good amount of agriculture, and that is the reason why we as a country are able to support 1.4 billion people, despite poverty, despite whatever we call it. There is food for people in India, and Himalayas and other mountain ranges across India are important for harvesting water. Without Himalayas, the rain clouds would just move upwards. Because of these mountain ranges, the clouds get locked and there is precipitation. Similarly, along the Western Ghats, you have good amount of rain because of the mountains. The Eastern Ghats again, you have the Satpura range right in the middle of India. You have the Aravallis up north, below the Himalayas, around Delhi. And if you come down towards Rajasthan, then you have Vindhyas. So India is covered in different mountain ranges, and that is the reason why we have good quality rain. We have high altitude. So this is Western Ghats. This is the Shola forest in Kerala. One cannot imagine that Kerala can be cold. This particular place in the night can be about 0 degrees or 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. There is frost on the surface, and that's why you don't have large trees, because it's too cold and windy. So only grass can survive in these areas. Obviously, India has so many different types of habitats. Grasslands are again an important habitat that we all undervalue, but they are very important also from the point of sequestering carbon. Grasslands sequester huge amount of carbon, and they are as important to the fight against climate change as forests are. Then we have so many different rivers. Most of them are born in forests, up in the mountains. You obviously have rivers in the Himalayas as well, that are born out of glacier melt, but most rivers of peninsular India are born in the forests. So forests are providing the required environment for precipitation and for sequestration really of water, because of the trees, because of the vegetation, the soil is loose and water can go in, and therefore you have rains for 3 or 4 months, but you have rivers flowing all throughout the year. If that was not so, if this forest, if these mountains were all bald, you will not have a flowing river beyond December. But because there is, the forests are acting as sponge, they are releasing water even after the monsoon is far gone. You go in any direction of the country and you will see very lush forests. It's an important character of tropical countries where the temperatures are not very severe. Of course, in Himalayas, because of high altitude, the temperatures are very low. Some places in Himachal, some places in Ladakh can be minus 25, 30, minus 40 degrees during the winter months. But mostly, India is a very stable climatic area. We have very little variation in day and night temperatures. We have very little variation between the seasons as well. So if you are from any part of peninsular India, so you're Bombay and below, you normally don't really have too much of variation. Obviously, there is some dip during winter, but it's not so severe, and that is the reason why it has lot of biodiversity. Um, you should know that India has different biogeographic zones because of, and biodiversity is linked with geography. So you cannot, so you have certain species in certain areas, you don't find them all throughout, and that's largely because of the geology, what is there in the soil, what is the vegetation that grows on it, and therefore species have adapted and eventually evolved in these different zones. So India has 10 biogeographic zones. You have Trans Himalayas, the one number there up in the mountains, which are cold deserts. Then you have the Himalayas, which is two. India has a range running all the way from Jammu and Kashmir to Arunachal Pradesh, and Himalayas, of course, are much larger than India. The whole of Nepal is in the Himalayan mountains. And Nepal also plays a big role in sequestering water, because a lot of rain that falls there eventually ends up in rivers in India. So the significance of forest outside of India is also big. So you cannot have a stable country, and you can't have, so therefore the trans-border relationships are important. India receives, the Brahmaputra river receives so much water from China. So these trans-boundary relationships are also important. But the most important thing is nature. So if China gets degraded, India is going to have a big trouble in irrigating its land, especially in areas of Assam and Arunachal Pradesh and all these areas, because that's where the water comes from. So these are different biogeographic zones. I don't want to read them all, but you can understand that there are islands, there are coasts, there are deserts, there are semi-arid zones, and that variety of habitat is actually results in a very good biodiversity, which means there is very high diversity in India. India is one of the global biodiversity hotspots because of that. As I said, without forests, without natural ecosystems like grasslands, you will not have rivers. And again, in India, we say forests are mothers of all rivers. Jungle nadi ki maa hai. And this is a photo from Mudumalai Tiger Reserve in Tamil Nadu. This photo was taken in February, and you can see that even during that month, and the monsoon has gone almost 3.5, 4 months back, you still have gushing waters, and that's largely because of the forests there. These forests are neither planted nor looked after by human beings. They are planted by these gardeners, like the hornbills, like the monkeys. This is a great hornbill. These are the animals that feed on fruits and eventually disperse seed to in a large area. In fact, bats also play a very important role in dispersing seed. They can fly almost 25 kilometers every night in search of food. I'm talking about the fruit-eating bats, and they can actually disperse seed in an area which is almost 1,800 to 2,000 square kilometers in a night. So if you have a roost of bat on a tree, the giant fruit bat, they could actually disperse seeds in an area of about 2,000 square kilometers every single night, free of cost. So those are the ecosystem services that we get from there. Butterflies, we find them very beautiful, but they are extremely important for pollination. Bees are extremely important for pollination. We don't even notice insects in the cities, but without butterflies, bees, wasps, we will not have such high biodiversity and pollination, and therefore seed formation in plants. So plants are life giving, but they get life because of organisms. So there is an umbilical cord between animals and plants. So you cannot have plants without animals, you cannot have animals without plants. That is something that you need to understand. Nothing in nature goes waste. So whatever there is in nature is recycled. uh, there is what we call leaf litter, and we keep cleaning leaf litter in our buildings is actually not waste. It is manure, and it needs to go back in the soil. So in a forest, you can never find any non-usable natural component. Everything in forest that you see is all usable. So here you can see that the termite is being eaten by a lizard, and the lizard is in the mouth of a kingfisher. When the three of them die, along with the tree on which the kingfisher is sitting, everything goes back into the soil, and it's broken down into simpler components, like simple chemicals like carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, by bacteria, by fungi, and it goes back, and then it's taken back in by the trees. The bird feeds on this particular species feeds on animals, insects, etc., etc. However, a lot of these animals are dependent on plants. So it's a web of life right in this picture. Every organism, as I said, has a role to play. It's like this particular web. Every drop that you see, think of it as a species. Every species that anywhere, if I were to, and every species is connected to the other species in some way or the other. Some relationships are obvious. You and I can see it easily and understand, but there are so many connections that you and I don't even know of. So a species that is removed from the ecosystem will have a long lasting impact on the ecosystem. The only fact is that we as human beings will not know when that impact is realized, which means today if we cut a tree in the jungle, we kill a species, say a hornbill is removed from the ecosystem, there are several trees that depend on that hornbill, on that species, for either dispersal of seeds, or yeah. So when a hornbill goes, you still have a forest which is standing, because trees live for hundreds of years. But without the hornbill, new recruitment, that is recruitment of that particular species of or those species of trees that depend on only that hornbill, will not happen. And without recruitment, you will only have old trees, and eventually when those trees die, that species will just be eradicated. So there are so many such connections in the forest, and it's a complex ecosystem, and it is a self-repairing ecosystem. The beauty of nature is that it is self-repairing. When you have a cyclone, you have any natural event like a tsunami, if you leave it over years, the habitat would rejuvenate. It may not rejuvenate into the same habitat, it may change a character, however it will repair itself. It is like your skin, when you get injured on your skin, if you just leave it open, you don't infect it because of mud or whatever, slowly it repairs itself. The forest also, and all ecosystems in nature, are self-repairing, and that is the reason why human beings are acting tough with nature, because we feel that we can abuse ecosystems and the ecosystems will take care of themselves. Um, that was true in a way when the impact of humans or anthropogenic pressures on nature was not so severe. But because we are more than 7.5 billion people now, the impact of that population, such huge population of one species, which is very hungry, which is very greedy, which wants to develop, which wants to occupy more land, that pressure on the ecosystem is so much that the destruction of the ecosystem is faster than the self-repairing mechanism of nature. So it's beyond the tipping point. So when you damage ecosystems at a rate which is faster than the rate of rejuvenation or the rate of repairing, then you will have an ecosystem which goes from good to average to bad to worse. And when that happens, it starts throwing different challenges, and climate change is one of those challenges that we are facing. And I said India is highly biodiverse. It has so many different types of organisms. I have not even displayed the number of bacteria and fungi species that are found on land. We don't know how many species live in the ocean. This is just a small, very, very, very tiny fraction of what we find. Reptiles, mammals in the sea, pretty much whales. You can see so many species of whales in India. You have dolphins, you have more than 1,300 species of birds, and every year we find a species or two which are not known to science. More than 305 species of snakes. Now snakes are also predators. So whenever you have large diversity of predators, you should know that the ecosystem is extremely biodiverse, because so many species cannot be supported if there was no food, and not all snakes eat the same thing. So there has to be a variety of food, and that is a hallmark of a tropical equatorial ecosystem that India is. You have more than 400 species of mammals, which is quite fascinating. Of these 400 species, 200 species are 100 species, 100 plus are bats, and 100 plus are rodents. The remaining 200 species are other mammals that we all know of, but there are so many different species of bats, more than 100, and they are either insectivorous or herbivorous. So either they pollinate or disperse seeds, or they remove pests from the atmosphere. Some of these tiny bats, like the pipistrelle, which are found in cities like Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, lot of cities, they're very tiny. They can eat insects equivalent to their body weight every single night. So they are performing the role of a pest controller. They are not as dangerous as they are made out to be thanks to COVID, but they have many more benefits than danger towards human beings. We also, like I said, snakes are predators, and you have large number of species. Similarly, you have large diversity of cats. No country on earth has 16 species of cats, Remember, we also had the cheetah. We will soon have the cheetah because it is going to get reintroduced in Madhya Pradesh and soon in other states as well. But we had cheetahs till about 1947. So again, large diversity of cats mean large diversity of prey. We have very many endangered species like the olive ridley turtle. We have the leatherback turtle. Uh, so we have hawksbill turtle. So we have four species of marine turtles, um, and you have what is called aribada, where thousands or hundreds of thousands of turtles come on the beach in Odisha to nest. It's an interesting festival. You guys, if you have time, make sure that you go there during that season. You will be completely captivated by nature. There are so many wetland birds which are very, very rare. Saras crane is the tallest flying bird on earth, and it's found along wetlands of Gujarat, Rajasthan, parts of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, etc., etc. But their numbers are going down because we've converted wetlands into agriculture land. Uh, you have endangered species in primates as well. This is the lion-tailed macaque, which is found in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. Uh, you have such charismatic species even in grasslands like the blackbuck, which occupy that particular ecosystem. And you have large cats like the leopard, uh, the lion, and of course the tiger that we are talking about. However, uh, the species that you see now and the forest the way you see currently was not going to be like this. There used to be a lot more pressure on our forests. While the population was low, there was huge amount of poaching pressure in India. Till about 1972, hunting of wildlife was allowed because remember, India was under the British rule, and during that era, British loved sport hunting. So they went to different parts of India just to collect skin, to collect birds. So many different species were hunted down as for sports. Indian Maharajas also had a tradition of have sport hunting. The British passed on so many ammunitions to so many people when they left, and the population and therefore there was hunting, very very prevalent hunting all throughout the country. And if that had continued, I think we would have lost all our large mammals nearly 30 years ago. There was a lot of forest degradation also. Lot of forest was being converted from forest to non-forest activities. A lot of people uh, from different communities, even in the cities, towns, were encroaching upon forest land. So we were in a bad shape. However, the Prime Minister of India at that point, late Mrs. Indira Gandhi, uh, played a master stroke. She came up with an idea to launch what is called the Wildlife Protection Act. And the Wildlife Protection Act banned all types of hunting. It also started, after that, we started declaring areas as protected areas. So it defined what a protected area is, which means what is national park, what is sanctuary, what is a conservation reserve, what is a community reserve. And today we have nearly 900 uh, protected areas in India. So from 1972 to 1922, which is, you can actually, the 50 years, uh, you have 900 protected areas. But the total area is not much. It is still about 5% of India. But that 5% of India is protected well. And that is the 5% from where all the rivers, most of our peninsular India rivers, are either being are born or are being fed. So you have to remember this 1970s were very important years. 1972 especially was the most important year because the Wildlife Protection Act was enacted. 1973 is again an important year. In 1972, while the Wildlife Protection Act was enacted, they had already decided that they will launch what is called Project Tiger, which is one of the most successful conservation programs till date on earth, because tiger populations had dwindled And tiger population, as I started my talk with, I said that they are large ranging and they are indicators of health of ecosystems. So when tiger populations were going down, we knew they were basically, tigers like are like barometer. We could know that the populations of tigers are going because the forests are going. If the forests go, we'll have no water to drink. And if we have no water to drink, how are we going to win elections? How are we going to uh, have a stable nation? And so that was the idea behind Project Tiger. So 1973 is an important year again where Project Tiger was launched. Now it is called the National Tiger Conservation Authority. It is no longer called Project Tiger. It is called NTCA from 2006 onwards. And so the rationale was simple: save tigers to save forests, um, and by saving forests, you will save so many other less spectacular species that people don't worry about or people don't care about, rather. So tiger conservation is equivalent to conservation of biodiversity, not only small animals but also large mammals like the elephant got a sanctuary in these areas which are protected for tigers. Kaziranga has rhinos. Kaziranga is in Assam, but Kaziranga is now a tiger reserve. In the name of tiger reserve, the forest receives a lot of money, and that is used to protect other species, especially the one-horned rhino as well. So tiger conservation was an umbrella program under which the idea was to protect the ecosystem, therefore the water catchment areas, and also other species. So this is the reason why India still has so much of fresh water, which is irrigating so much of our land. However, while uh, Project Tiger, the Wildlife Protection Act, and another act which was very important, which you students should remember, is the Forest Conservation Act, FCA, and that was launched in 1980. So the Wildlife Protection Act stopped hunting. The Forest Conservation Act stopped conversion of forest into non-forest. That act was also brought in during the tenure of the late Mrs. Indira Gandhi. She had lost elections in between, but she got re-elected, and immediately as she came back, she launched the Forest Conservation Act. So solely because of her passion, a politician was able to safeguard ecosystems of India. Having said that, India population has continued to grow. The pressure on ecosystems is looming large, and you know, Project Tiger was launched about 50 years ago, as I said. However, more than half the forest that existed when the Project Tiger was launched have been either cut down or badly degraded. So while it is protected areas, but there are so many other areas where, because of anthropogenic pressure, because of developmental pressure, the forests have gone. For example, thermal power plants have come up, and they obviously need coal, and coal obviously comes from under the soil, which means you need to mine, and most of the mines are where mountains are, and therefore they are directly overlapping with forest cover of India. And so more thermal power we generate, obviously we are going to destroy ecosystems, and that to those important mountains which are important for sequestering or for precipitation. So without these mountain ranges, you will have very erratic monsoon, and even when you have monsoon, the rain will wash away so much of topsoil that nothing can ever grow there. It will fill up all our dams as well. So big developmental projects are needed to support large populations like India. So you will need dams, you will need mines, but most of those are going to come right where the forests are. Even linear infrastructure, which people don't worry about because they are thin strips. For instance, a canal is a thin strip, roads, railways, and you feel how does that influence the forest in a negative way? But a road like this cutting through a forest is a barrier for movement of wildlife, and as a result the genetic diversity goes down, which means some individuals will never cross the road. As a result, you have two different populations on both sides. You have, as a result, human wildlife conflict, because animals that can't go move, will depend in that on one area where the prey will go down, and those animals will then go for cattle, and cattle obviously belong to poor people. As a result, you will have conflict between people and wildlife. As a result, people will poison large carnivores. So tigers, leopards, lions can be easily killed by poisoning, and that is happening across many parts of the country. Um, and finally, because of all these developmental activities, especially thermal power plants, the biggest threat to climate is from thermal power plants, because A, it is mining and you destroying forest there. B, the pollution that is created because of the carbon dioxide and other fumes that come from thermal power plants are solely responsible for uh, creating what is called climate change. What is climate change? Climate change is nothing but uh, variation, or a phenomena where greenhouse gases are getting trapped in our atmosphere. As a result, the temperature of the planet is increasing. Because of that increasing temperature, you have cascading effects on ice melt. You have a lot of other uh, uh, influences, like the food. You can see from this particular slide, which is taken from a very important piece of work by Lord Nicholas Stern. If you guys have time, you should go online and look at the kind of publications that he has come out with. Eye opening. Many of you are going to join industry, many of you are going to work, maybe set up your own businesses. It's important to understand the impact of what we do on the environment, and it is possible to have a healthy business and it is possible to make money without damaging the environment. So it's a right time in your life to start understanding these things, because as the temperature rises, and we already have more than 1.5 degree rise, we are heading towards a 3 to 4 degree rise, and the world is right now fighting to keep that to where we are. Even a 2 degree rise in temperature, in comparison to what it was in the pre-industrial area, pre-industrial era, that is about 200 years ago. If we can keep it to 1.5 degrees, which is we are not very far from there, only then can we support such large populations on this planet. But if the temperature goes beyond 2 degrees, you will see the different kind of impact that we'll start seeing. Crops, agriculture will fail, the yield will fail. If the agriculture doesn't fail, the amount of yield will go down. So many countries are dependent on rice, on wheat for survival because of poverty there. And if rice cultivation and wheat cultivation fail, you can imagine the kind of crisis it can create. um, you will have glaciers which will melt, which means rivers will not have water after a few decades, because during see, you in the Himalayas especially, water, rivers have water even in summer because ice is melting. In South India, in Central India, of course, there is no ice melting, and so you have rivers flowing during monsoon, and in the dry season it slowly becomes very narrow. But in the Himalayas, the river flow actually is maintained all throughout the year, and which is very important for irrigation. uh, and that's going to get hampered because of glacier melt. Polar regions will melt. As a result, there will be a lot more water entering, especially from Antarctica, because Antarctica has land ice, Arctic is floating ice. So even if that ice flow melts, it's not going to increase the uh, the the level of water. However, Antarctica ice, if it melts, and it has started melting, big glaciers are cracking, they are breaking off, then your sea level is going to rise, and most of the business hubs of the world, the biggest and the most important cities, financial capitals of so many countries, are all along the sea, because they are prosperous because there were ports very early, and that's why those cities became extremely in terms of finances very strong. And today, if you look at any big country, most of their important cities are along the coast, and you will have tremendous impact of sea level rise on them. You will have big die-offs in the sea, which you have already started seeing, what is called bleaching, where coral reefs are getting destroyed. And remember, we keep talking of land, but the sea is far bigger and it's far more biodiverse than land. And so while the ecosystems are getting hampered on land and we get worried about it, we can't even see what's happening under the sea, and coral reefs are dying. As a result, the entire web of life in the sea is getting hammered. More than 35% of the planet is dependent on seafood, either for business or for survival. And if and the catch the fish catch has dropped drastically in the last 20-30 years, and if it continues, we will soon have crisis. So many economies are dependent on fish, and that's going to have a direct impact as well. You will have an increasing weather events or erratic weather events, where you will have rains during summer. We have already seen rain in December in Bombay. We hardly ever saw rain there. We have the dry seasons are becoming drier, the wet seasons are becoming wetter. And so that erratic behavior has a big impact on ecosystems, because you have floods, and during floods a lot of topsoil gets washed away. You have forest fires which are uncontrollable because there is no moisture in the soil because of the extreme heat. In fact, the last 19 years have been the hottest years of our lifetime. So every year is hotter than the previous year, or every
So
year.
sorry to interrupt. Last 2-3 minutes. Sir.
Yes.
Sorry.
So every year is either hotter than the previous year or hotter than 20 years ago. And so that impacts the humidity in the soil. As a result, when forest fires, which are all man-made in India, they are all man-made. People who are herding cattle, they burn dry grass so that the ash created by it will help sprouting fresh sprouts, so that their cattle can feed on it. But those fires escape into the forest, and they burn large tracts of forest. You had some big fires in Amazon as well that went on for almost 200 days. We had big fires in Australia which destroyed more than a few billion animals in I think it was last year, 2020, 2021. So forest fires are big, and they add a lot more heat into the environment, plus the carbon dioxide that comes. So climate change is not just one issue, but because of climate change, you will have multiple things. You will have impact on biodiversity as well. So climate change will impact nutrient cycles, because a certain species will get impacted and their population may go down. As a result, especially in the soil, what is happening is that it starts impacting. If the soil gets washed away, you will not have bacterial action on dead and decaying plants and animals. So how the soil becomes depleted of nutrients every year. As a result, the vegetation that it supports, it cannot support any longer. And so that then productivity, so as I say, yield goes down, but not only on agricultural land, but also in the forest. Seeding doesn't happen correctly, fruiting also fails. As a result, animals that are dependent on fruits will also go down. And so there are these pinch periods when there is huge amount of die-offs. So everything looks fine, but suddenly if the fruit if a certain species doesn't fruit because of change in weather, so many other birds and mammals that are dependent on those fruits will die out. Pollination, herbivory, disease, as you see, COVID is a great example. Prey predator relationships, they are all hampered because of this demon called climate change. It's all man-made. Phenological shifts, which means caterpillars, so butterflies will lay eggs during a certain season, which is when there is lush environment, which means there is a lot of vegetation. But if monsoon gets hampered, butterflies cannot wait, so they will lay eggs in a season when there is nothing to eat, and so the entire crop of butterflies will die. So the generations, so it will have those kind of impact range boundaries. So if snow leopards live today in Ladakh, and Ladakh is protected area right now, some lot of areas there is protected. But if temperature rises and you suddenly see that particular habitat changes and the snow there melts, snow leopards cannot move out of the protected area, because if they move out, they'll be killed. and there is no space up in the mountain. They cannot keep going up because mountain area keeps going down as the mountain if you go up. So many range boundaries will shift. As a result, the species abundance will also get impacted. So many different. So this is the biggest challenge. So when climate change happens, and if we are fighting it, but climate change is already hampering biodiversity, and climate change is dependent on ecosystem quality. And by ecosystem quality, it means either good quality forest, grasslands, or very good quality coral reefs. But if they go down, then biodiversity will go down, and it is a vicious cycle. So climate change and biodiversity are connected, and we cannot improve one if the other is going bad. So we have to remember that the solutions to fighting climate change are not easy, because it's just not planting trees. You and I cannot fight climate change by clearing forests and planting monoculture teak or some plantations. It has to be heterogeneous natural forest where you have so many different types of species, different sizes of plants. Only then can it support biodiversity, and only if there is biodiversity in ecosystems will you be able to sequester more carbon. So remember, climate change cannot be solved by plantations. Climate change can only be solved by protecting ecosystems of different types along with the species that live in that ecosystem. And this is an example where you can see on the left, in 2008, these are the species abundance. This is a species abundance map. So how many species are threatened? And if we extrapolate and if we assume that the business is happening as usual, which means the kind of development that is happening in India continues, you will see that by 2030, there is going to be huge forest degradation, fragmentation, and threatened, and the species abundance would have gone down by then. So these are the kind of modelings that people have done, and it's scary. Today we have only about 3,000 tigers left in India. India is doing better than all other tiger range countries. However, only 3,000 tigers left. We can support nearly 15,000 tigers in our country. That is the kind of forest we have. However, we don't have them because we are not doing enough. It is degraded. It doesn't have prey. So again, tiger can still act as barometer. The forest and other ecosystems are not only important for wildlife, but there are so many tribal communities. India has the highest density of tribals, that is people, tribes living inside the forest, and their life and existence also depends on the quality of the forest. So it's not just for wildlife, but also for people. Finally, all nature asks of us is that we stop harming it. Nature can self repair itself. However, we need to back off. If we continue to do what we are doing, and if we only have about 5% of India as protected, we will have no hope in hell, because soon you will see that forest degradation will cause hunger. Hunger will create more inequity, which means a bigger gap between the rich and the poor. That will have an impact on the social structure. There will be stresses, and you will have law and order situations. And there, finally, you will have what is called extremism or terrorism, where people are so frustrated because there are no jobs, they cannot feed their children, they'll take law in their hands, and you will have a law order situation. If it is in a small country, even then it becomes difficult to handle. Think about a country with 1.3 billion people, where majority of the people want to steal from others because they have no other means. So we have to understand that environment degradation, forest degradation, ocean degradation is directly related to law and order situations, and other terrorism and extremism that we see around us. Anywhere you go on this planet, analyze countries where you have huge refugee situations. Those are the countries where they have destroyed the environment. There is no healthy water body there, and there is huge amount of diseases. So this is the reason why we need to protect our hearts and our lungs, which means our forests, not just the borders of the country, because the army, navy, and air force is protecting the skin of the country. But if we leave our lungs, our hearts, our kidneys, which are the forests and other ecosystems like grasslands, like marshlands, like wetlands, like coasts, then we are going to, there is no point in protecting our borders. So with this, I end my talk here. I'll stop my sharing. But these are My details, you could follow me on Instagram. I have a Twitter account. My email address is also given here, and my organization's uh, website is also mentioned. So thank you very much, and I'll be more than happy to take questions now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, Vishal, 1 minute just. So thank you, sir. And when you asked me about the subjects, and you gave me 3, 4 subjects, and we were discussing this particular thing. Today, while listening to you, I understood that tiger and climate change, how it is very well connected, and how the main link is forest, river. We always, give all the importance to that one particular species, but it's not that. We have to think all these things which are combined together and which we have to fight against. I think then only we are going to survive, I guess. That is a huge, information in such a small time you put in front of us. Thank you very much. This is really very much eye-opening. Thanks, sir. So, students and those who are here, you want to ask any question, please go ahead. The team, if you have any questions, please go ahead.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Hello, sir. I'm Najib Joshi. I've been following your work for the last 7 to 8 years, and it's really an honor to talk to you today. So, I have a few questions I wanted to ask a tiger biologist since the past 7, 8 years. So, I have 4 questions. So, the first one is, we have been collaring tigers to understand their territorial behavior. So, I wanted to ask, how successful is that been? And after what happened with Jay in 2016, what are the issues with tiger collaring, and are there any issues regarding collaring of tigers? And if there are, how are we mitigating that, or suggesting any alternatives to it? That's my first question.
Okay. So first of all, collaring is an important exercise. It is essential to understand behavior and ranging patterns and the movement of large carnivores, and that becomes important because we don't have large size forests. So tigers are not connected to other tiger habitats directly. They are connected through corridors. Corridors are very thin, and corridors for tigers are not just forests, but they are also agricultural land. In the night, tigers can walk through an agriculture field. If there is a standing crop, the tiger will walk through sugarcane. The tiger will walk through paddy fields. It will walk through river beds in the night. So there could be cities on both sides, but if there is a river flowing between in through the city, you can easily have a tiger walk through. So that understanding has happened because of collaring. Otherwise, people thought tigers are only taking forests, are moving through forests. So that has changed the way we understood concept of corridor. So there is no question that collaring is an important scientific tool. However, we already know a lot about tigers in central India because of collaring. Also, some tigers in South India have been collared. So we cannot do it forever. Once we have enough information, we should definitely reduce the amount of collars that we put, because collars do have an impact on the tiger, although it's minimal, because the weight of the collar is never more than 2% of the weight of the tiger. And it is now all the collars are with a drop off mechanism, which means after the battery of the collar dies, you can trigger the collar in a way that the collar will drop off from the neck. So if you keep a collar for about 4 months, 5 months, and there is a button on your receiver. If you click, there is a small charge on the collar, which will explode. Now this explosion is miniature explosion. It won't affect the tiger, and the collar comes off. Lot of researchers have understood this, and I know some leopard researchers who remove collars even in 3 months, if there is monsoon, so during rain again there can be impact on the throat of the animal. So they drop off the collar even when the battery is there, because they don't want the animal to suffer in monsoon. So definitely people are more aware. The rules are far more stringent. Collaring is not so easy, but it is needed when we want to understand how the tigers are using habitat or any other species. Jay died not because of the collar. Jay died because it lived largely outside protected areas in human dominated landscape. He had lost fear of people, so he was such a large tiger, walking very close to human habitation, not ever attacking people. So people knew where it was, and there are so many poor people, and there are so many poachers, and there is illegal trade in tiger bones and skins in China. And so every tiger is priceless actually. And so if there is a tiger that's coming out of the forest, moving along villages, it's very easy for somebody to kill the tiger. So Jay died because he was not inside the protected area. Poaching in protected areas is minimal. And so I think I have answered both your questions.
Yes, sir. I have one more question. So we all talk about man-animal conflict with tigers more specific to central India. But what is the situation in non-central regions such as Dudhwa, you had of the
So
northeast
there is
and
you. So yeah, Central India, we talk about it because organizations like us work very intensively here. There is more work done in Central India because of Wildlife Conservation Trust than any other tiger population. The understanding of populations of tigers outside protected area is better than any other country on earth. So because of that, there is a lot more information. Plus, Central India, the forests are deciduous, I mean semi-deciduous. And so if a tiger dies, it's easy for forest department or for people to notice a dead tiger. If you go to the Western Ghats, it is so dense and it is so wet that the body decays rapidly and nobody knows what is happening. Similarly, in Dudhwa is a very fragmented forest. In fact, there is huge amount of conflict, but the conflict is such that it's not damaging human beings so much, but the tigers are being killed easily because Dudhwa is divided into three parks: Kishanpur, Katarnia Ghat, and Dudhwa National Park, and they are all disjointed. So it's not one park. It's called Dudhwa Tiger Reserve, but it is three different pockets, and there is huge human habitation and sugarcane because it's a sugarcane belt, because there is a lot of water, because these are all rivers up in the north receiving water from the Himalayas as well. As a result, there is the agriculture there has moved from traditional crops to sugarcane, and sugarcane is such thick, forms such a thick cover that tigers can easily move in. And there are a lot of people who have large sugarcane land holdings, and when tigers go there, and most people there have guns, and so they are being killed. So definitely Dudhwa Tiger Reserve has conflict, but it's largely conflict against the tiger, and the tiger populations there are much lower than what they could be. In fact, that part of India is so rich because of the nutrition that the rivers bring in, that it should have much higher tiger density than central India. But in fact, Dudhwa National Park probably doesn't even have 15 tigers. Katanya Ghat, we don't know how many tigers there are, because Katanya Ghat is a thin strip of forest, almost 100 kilometers long, along the India-Nepal border. So you have threats not only from India, but also from Nepal. And Nepal is a much poorer country than India. So you can imagine the kind of poaching pressure that is along the entire length of Katanya Ghat sanctuary. So yes, there is conflict, and wherever there are large carnivores and people, you will have interactions, and those interactions can be neutral. Very rarely will it be positive, and largely it will be perceived as negative because people have a perception. So it's a perception issue. Tigers are not creating conflict. People are thinking of them as problematic animals.
thank you so much, sir.
So I guess Nidip has a few more questions, but if let's go others also. If you have any questions, please.
Yes, ma'am, I had a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, Rishabh, go on.
Good afternoon, sir. So I just wanted to ask you, like, what's your opinion on man-eaters and how is it being tackled in India right now?
Hmm. So India has tackled man-eaters and whatever you call it, man-eater word itself is a myth. There is nothing like man-eater today. Mostly you have attacks because of accident. Some animals live along, and lot of animals, as I said, nearly I would say 35% of all tigers live in human-dominated landscapes. It's a big amount. So 65% of them live inside protected areas. Most others are living in areas where there are people, there are cattle. So they are in touch with human beings on a daily basis, and accidents do happen because they are finally powerful animals. If if a human being walks very close to them, they may get scared, and in nature the law is attack is the best defense, and that's when they attack, and a human being can die in seconds because there is no way. Tigers are very powerful. They can bring down a 500 kg gore. A human being is not even 70 kgs mostly, so it's very easy for them to die. So I think man eating, if you look at the word man eater very seriously, then it has to be an animal that largely goes for human beings, which means it prefers human beings over other species. But those kind of individuals are extremely rare now. You do have some stray incidences once in a few years, but largely, just take it from me that there are 3,000 tigers in India. Each one of them has access to human beings on a daily basis, because inside the jungle there are forest guards. Inside tiger reserves there are 3 million people living inside India's 52 tiger reserves. So it is not like tiger reserves have no people. Outside tiger reserves we have large the sea ocean of people, but inside tiger reserve there are 3 million people and villages, nearly 70 to 100 villages in buffer zone of every tiger reserve. So the tigers are in contact with human beings on a daily basis. If they were man eaters, we would have lost 3,000 people every 2 or 3 days, but we don't even lose 100 people every year, which means it's not an issue. And India has done exceedingly well compared to other tiger range countries when it comes to managing emotions of people. I think it is not just because of the forest department, it is also because of the culture of India. People worship wildlife, people worship nature, people God fearing. We are vegetarians largely. As a result, the impact on the forest and on other wildlife is not so much. The impact is largely because of overpopulation and because of rapid growth in the country. It is not because we don't love our forests. We do love our ecosystems. And if you travel to any part of the country, any state, you will see that the communities are living extremely close to the forest, sometimes inside the forest, and you never see them complain about wildlife so much. It is all in the heads of the city goers, because we alienate ourselves from nature.
Right, so thank you. So I just had one small question, like following up. Why is it that we always see, like I have seen, and whenever I have read, I have always read that these incidents happen a lot in the Sundarbans compared to other places, other tiger reserves. So is there any particular reason for that?
No, so Sundarbans, because it is West Bengal is very high density area. Just hold on, I'm getting a call. I need to take this call. Hello, hello. Yes. हाँ रवि बोला. तो कभी आऊँ मैं? हाँ तो मैं 1:30 के बाद आऊँगा, 2 बजे आऊँगा. ओके. ठीक ठीक. ओके, डन. थैंक्स. Sorry about this. I had to. So where was I? I was talking about Sundarbans. So Sundarbans is very high density. If you know West Bengal, it's one of the densest in terms of human population, and also there is huge amount of poverty. People are dependent on protein available in nature. So in Sundarbans, because it's an estuary People are dependent on fish food, prawns, fish, and various other things that they find, honey in the forest, because there is extreme poverty. So despite the threat, people go into the forest. And if there are people going into the forest every day, and hundreds of them, not only in India but also in Bangladesh, and tigers are going to get exposed to those people, and so the incident of attacks on people is higher because lot more people go there. Plus, one must remember that in Sundarbans, uh, there is compensation for people who die because of tiger attacks. But Sundarban also has estuarine crocodiles, and it also has sharks in the sea, that is in the estuary. And quite a few people also fall prey to these two animals. But because there is no compensation, there the deaths because of crocodiles and sharks are also passed off as deaths because of tigers. Because there they get compensation, and so the forest department also doesn't complain. They help the villager because obviously there is a loss of a bread earner in the family. So definitely the incidence of human attacks are higher, but that's because people are venturing into the jungle much more. And because tigers in Sundarbans don't get large prey easily, because you don't have gore, you don't have sambar, you have very little, very few cheetahs, spotted deer, and tigers are large bodied animals. They need large mammals. So they are surviving on fish, crabs, monitor lizards, and such animals. So therefore, if they get a mammal, then it is easier. They can eat from a large mammal for 2 or 3 days. And that's why if they get access to mammal which is large, and human beings is not large mammal but it is sizable, then they may get tempted to go for it because they don't have other similar sized prey in Sundarbans. There are pigs as well, so tigers do eat pigs there, but unlike the tigers on the mainland, where they have gore which is 1000 kgs, you have sambar which is 250 kgs, you have swamp deer which is another 175, 200, and hundreds of thousands of spotted deer, which are all about 40 kgs, 50 kgs. So that kind of prey is not available in Sundarban.
Thank you, sir.
Sir,
So,
I had it up.
yeah. So we are going for one last question. And Madhav, please go ahead.
Uh, Sir, is there any effect of pollutants and microplastics on the physiology of these of tigers?
No work has been done, but I'm sure if those plastics are entering the ecosystem, then through our understanding of the way energy is stored in ecosystems, predators will accumulate in the predators. It's what is called bioaccumulation. So definitely they will have, but not as much as the marine predators like sharks and big whales. They have a very direct impact of microplastics, because a lot of plastic ends up in the sea, and there it gets broken down easily because of various activities there, and then that enters the entire uh, food chain and eventually accumulates up in the predators. So definitely there is, but there are many more severe threats to tigers than that. So people focus on those currently. So thank you very much for your questions.
So, Anish
Shilpa.
sir, yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Those who have any more questions, you can directly contact Anish sir, or you can just get through me and I'll connect you with Anish sir
Yeah.
definitely. So Vishal, you can go ahead with vote of thanks. And I request those who are here, can you please open your videos? We can have one group photo when Vishal is giving vote of thanks. Yes, Vishal, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for such an enlightening, energetic, and erudite session. We are very grateful to you for taking out time on a Sunday morning to enlighten the students on such an important topic. Your insights on the idiosyncrasies of the striped water god, the rationale and the importance of tiger conservation, as the same is reflective of the health of ecosystem, the incredible diversity of the geography and nature in India, the importance of forests in watering the earth, the thankless tasks and services provided by the fauna, the connection and the dependence of species on one another, the unknowns human risk to face in the case of extinction, such as climate changes, the various laws, such as the Wildlife Protection Act and the Forest Conservation Act, and the existential threats faced currently due to the energy needs, urbanization, etc., and the extremities of climate change induced by humans and their harmful effects. Thank you, sir, for answering the questions patiently. I hope that the students have gained a wider perspective on conservation and biodiversity. Once again, thanking you, sir. It was a privilege to host you.
Pleasure is mine, and looking forward to interactions in the future as well, in person also. It'll be good to actually be in the same room as you people.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Thanks. Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you.
Again, and have a nice day.
Have a
everyone.
lovely day, all of you.
Yeah. So, hi team, you also did a good job. Thanks everyone, the participants. It was a vast subject, and yes, once again, let me tell you that sir himself, he pointed out that along with the tiger, we have to talk about the forest and rivers and the overall biodiversity. We never ever can only focus on tiger. So it was, but till I joined or till I listened to him, I never had thought that this subject would have been so deep. So yeah, I am completely overwhelmed today actually. So thanks for being here on Sunday, and see you on not next Sunday. So we have directly session on 6th of March, next to next Sunday. See you. Bye guys.
Thank you, ma'am.
Everyone is requested to please fill the feedback form given in the chat box. Thank you.
हाँ, जो भी 30 लोग हैं, प्लीज वो फीडबैक फॉर्म भर के फिर जाओ. Okay. So Tanay, Harsha, Nikita, Vishal, Tanya, is she there? So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, ma'am. Had a great time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the session.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.